Hello, I'm Ann Moratto. I'm the Director of Brand Content Strategy for Modern Salon, and I am so happy to be sitting across from Janine Jarman. Janine has this really interesting career trajectory, and she's been a very visible presence in our industry for many years. She's a California-based stylist who was a reality star, who went on to own salons. And now she has this new passion. I think the through line is she's always been about supporting hairdressers. But her new passion, I'm going to let her kind of dive into that. But I want to welcome you, Janine, and ask you to sort of give us your beauty bio. Give us a little bit of background on you.
Okay. Hi. Thanks for having me today. I'm so excited to be in the mix again after all the time that's passed with being out of the mix. With whatever industry's gone through in the last couple of years.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. So for me, hair found me in high school. I struggled in school, and I know like a lot of hairdressers listening to this can relate. I struggled in school, was not really great at anything, but I always would throw my hair up in like, it was the 90s too. Let me preface that before people are like, what? Would throw my hair up into like weird updos and shove flowers in it and do that. And a senior at the time, I think I was a sophomore, was like, oh, I'm nominated for homecoming court. Can you do my hair for court? I was like, yeah, sure. So I worked at a bikini shop when I wasn't at school, and she came and I did her hair in one of the dressing rooms, and I'd never done somebody else's hair. She loved it. All of her friends then the next day was the dance, wanted me to do their hair, and that's where it took off. And I quickly realized, as much as I loved doing hair, I also loved just as much, if not more, like growing the business of it, the acquisition of clients, and like how that worked, organizing them. And we ended up, I teamed up with a best friend who's still my best friend, Noelle. She did makeup, I did hair. We subleased a place like just on dance days in exchange for cleaning a back room of a dress shop. Like I was entrepreneurial from the get-go. So that has been, if anything, if there's ever been a common theme, that has always followed my career. And as much as I love doing hair, I loved the business side of it and growing a business. Fast forward to, I started coming up to LA a ton because, as luck would have it, it happenstance ended up being a hairdresser for the Pussycat Dolls when they were a burlesque troupe before they were the pop sensation that you know them today. And it was, I tell a lot of new stylists this too, that was one of those things. Somebody knew somebody that knew somebody, and it was Halloween night on a Friday or Saturday, like a really good Halloween night. And this burlesque troupe in LA, at the time I was working in Huntington Beach, where I grew up, needed a hairdresser, and it paid $0. And did anybody want to like ditch their their Halloween plans to do hair for free for 15 people? And yes, I was that person. I was like, what a spectacular opportunity. Wherever I could get myself in front of a ton of people and practice things and be pushed and challenged, I signed up for. So, I mean, to this day, I still do a ton of free work when it fills my bucket. So like when it's like something that I'm like, I'm going to learn from this, I'm going to make connections, I'm going to meet people. I love working, so it's never hard to talk me into something fun, like doing a burlesque troupe's hair. So that's where my LA career started. The first person to sit in my chair was Carmen Electra. She then started having me do her hair regularly, and I moved here. I ended up buying a salon at 24. I was working at a salon, also working for Sexy Hair. I was the assistant to Michael O'Rourke, the founder. So doing the Pussycat Dolls, traveling all over the world for Sexy Hair, doing photo shoots for Sexy Hair. And then this salon that I started working at went under. The owner went to jail, and I called Michael O'Rourke and Donna Federici, who to this day, Donna like gets calls from me, probably more than she would ever have signed up for initially, knowing like when I was like, I choose you to be my mentor. She was like, oh God, she didn't know what she was in for. They, like crazy people, were like, take the salon over. It's like it had been abandoned. There was a 30-day pay or quit. So I had been saving my money though, just like Michael Rourke said, because I was going to buy a house. He's like, whatever you do, all hairdressers save money, buy property. Like that is the way to like secure your future. So, if one big piece of advice I could say, like, do whatever someone more successful than you tells you to do. Like, if someone knows better than you and is more successful than you and they're like handing out advice, do it. So he told me at 19, save all your money, save any extra money, live like a poor person, save your extra money. So that money, at 24, I had enough to take over that salon, because they don't hand out business loans to 24-year-olds, as it turns out, to my shock and surprise.
Right.
But yeah, so I was able to pull out of my savings, take over the salon myself. And I've owned a heroin salon. I also named it something gregarious as heroin, because when you're 24, you just got to LA and you're opening a salon in a city where there's plenty of salons. I needed to make an impact immediately. So a friend of mine came up with the name, Carla, and she's like, name it this. And I was like, oh my God, people are going to hate it or love it. And so the story goes, that is me. That is my brand. Like, hate it or love it, you're going to remember it. And sometimes that's just as important. So yeah, I've owned heroin for 16 years in LA. We had a location for 6 years in New York. COVID helped us make the decision to close that, which my business partner, Melissa, she's who I ended up meeting at the very beginning of COVID. And I was like, for a different reason, that ended up like, she's like, we really hit it off. She's this incredible, like, business, like, force, but a kind force, like not the normal, like what I had pictured, like a CEO, like lady boss type. She's kind, she's smart, she's thoughtful. We got introduced to start a different project, and she like put me and my team through all these things during COVID. Yeah. So I'll skip kind of forward to that. Like, during COVID, I had to make so many hard decisions, and I thought I'd be sad forever, closing my New York salon, closing down. I had an online store that I really believed in, but in one day I decided to close that and my New York salon and never look back, put all my eggs in my LA salon basket and my curl cult, my new perm that I'd secretly been working on for probably 7 years when nobody wanted curly hair. That's why it was like secretly working on. But for the last 4 years, I'd been really focused on it. It took me to Italy, thanks to Donna. Again, man, if you can find a mentor out there, oh, keep them, call them, like be relevant in their life and listen to what they tell you to do, because there's so many things that, I mean, down to 4 years ago, she's like, all right, I know you're like super passionate about perms. I found this factory in Italy, because that was one of her things. She's like, what are your like must-haves if you were to launch a line? And when I was on Sheer Genius, which was 11 years ago, a lot of opportunities came my way to represent brands, to maybe do my own private label thing, like, and take more of that celebrity hairstylist route. It just wasn't me. Like, I knew at the end of the day, I am a true blue behind the chair hairdresser. And more than that, I'm a salon owner, and I really find a lot of my passion, my magic, when I'm leading other hairdressers. And I knew just me putting a cool label on something would never really fill my heart up. I could never get in front of my peers and be like, yeah, you need this, bring in another line for no reason. So as hard as it was, and to say no to opportunities that my heart just wasn't in, and to like turn down money that I knew I'm like, I just doesn't, I know that I need to do bigger things and I need to really dig deep and find what I can get behind and like bring to my people, bring to my hairdressers to really help elevate their business, get them excited, and more importantly, embrace creativity. That's something that I pride myself on. I love being creative. I love, making magic. Like I feel like we are magic makers. And that was something in the last 2 years became so evident. Never did I realize just how much I needed to physically touch people and make them happy. And it was in a blink of an eye. But being in LA too, we were shut down in 2020. We were closed more than we were open. And it never have I been really like depressed or I didn't know what to do. So I got to work and was like, all right, this passion project, this like perm, I'm gonna do everything I don't know how to do. I've never started a product line. I am fighting through being so sad and depressed, having to close down my salon, homeschool my kids, which I have 2 kids as well, one of which is in Spanish immersion school. I don't speak Spanish. What I thought was a great idea, getting my kid in Spanish immersion school, turned out to be a really challenging homeschool situation. But I did what I do best, and I got creative. I found my daycare that my girls had gone to when they were little, talked them into doing homeschooling for me because they speak gorgeous Spanish there, among a handful of other languages. So we made up this like mini school in one of their overflow like playrooms, so that I could get to work. And yeah,
Even you're even entrepreneurial in your parenting because that's
I
sort of like that reminds me of when you cleaned the backstage, so that when you were working. I mean, it's again like just being creative and finding
yeah,
solutions. So I'm going to just keep running with this because,
okay,
when we are talking about perms and, old school notions of
yeah,
perms, um, first of all, tell us what are people's sort of hesitations around perms, what's
okay,
different about curl cult, and also why this is going to be something. I mean, salons and stylists need something new and they
yeah,
need more revenue generating services.
yeah. It was an idea and timing coming together. It's an idea that I've always known in my heart that permanent texture could be so much more to our industry than it is. But I mean, for a very specific reason, nobody wanted curly hair for so long. So why would any brand invest in like evolving perms and like nobody cared apparently except for me, and maybe a handful of other people. But it I needed to also wait, like get my ideas down, come up with like formula, like theories and thesis, find the factory or a lab that would make the kind of products I needed, because I needed them to be vegan, paraben free, sulfate free, surfactant free, to meet all of these eco guidelines that have to happen. Like I don't want to say like, oh, they're popular. Like this is just how it's going to be. Thank God. And if I'm going to give a chemical to my stylist and be like, use this, get it on, obviously use gloves, but it gets on our skin, it gets on client skin. Like I needed to go above and beyond to make sure I was putting out the most healthy, cleanest, evolved, everything, like had to hit all these indicators. And it took us, so 4 years ago, Donna found a lab because I was like, I only want to make it in Italy. We had met with American manufacturers and they were like, one, not interested in making a perm or spending money to like, make a perm better. Like that's the other part too, as like a hairdresser, I've worked for product companies, but I've never like, I'm spending sexy hairs money by being like, this is too sticky. This needs to be like this. Like it just never even occurred to me the amount it costs and the amount of time and the laboratory resources you need to really invent a new product, to like evolve a product. I think 4 years ago we went there. I met with the chemist, I met with the chemist and with an interpreter. And the chemist is like an older Italian man, very accomplished, worked for L'Oreal, worked for like all these things, and he's like very prideful, in his maybe late 70s Italian guy. And here I am, this like talk too much American hairdresser. I'm like, all right, we're going to make a perm. Aren't you so excited? This is the best idea ever, to the interpreter. And he's like shouting at me in Italian and basically is like, why are you here? This is the worst idea ever. Nobody wants a perm. You wait. Why? Like, you're basically crazy. Like, why did you come all this way to tell me to make a perm? It's the worst selling SKUs out there. And I had to get clever, as one does, and I had to appeal to his sense of like, all right, sum him up. Like, what's he going to respond to? I can't go toe to toe. Like, you will make this perm. I was like, all right, I know I have his number. I've met this type before in my career path. And I said, okay, just ask him. If he doesn't know how to make a perm, that's fine. I'll find someone that does. To which he replied, of course I know how to make a perm. And again, don't forget, this is getting shouted at through this poor dear interpreter. She's like, oh my gosh, I don't even want to tell you what he said. Like, he's like, don't insult me. Of course I know how to make a perm. I'll make you the best perm ever. And the rest is history. He loves me now. We made a great perm. It took 2 years to get all the components right. A couple things that I needed my perm to do was not smell or act like a perm. It needed to leave the hair softer, shinier. It needed to work quicker. We needed to use one solution for all hair types and textures. It couldn't come in a box anymore. It had to smell significantly better, which we did. That took 2 years alone. Of the 4 years to make it, 2 years was testing over 100 different fragrances, getting this like note matchup and this fragrance encapsulation, blah, 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 all the crazy stuff. So it smells way better. Most important, we neutralize over top. So I needed, and that was my big challenge with him, I needed a permanent styling lotion, if you will, that I could do really delicate permanent shapes on, that I could do sculpting with, that wouldn't be reactive to metal. So it had to be a 7.2 pH, like a middle histamine cysteine perm, so that I could do like sculptural things around mid-length hair that I couldn't get around a roller, that also didn't want to be wrapped around a tiny roller. I needed to be able to turn it into a liquid tool instead of it be this like thing. You just wrap it on rods, you have to hose it off, you have to blot it. We are so limited and locked into what we could do if you have to put it on a perm rod. And we did it. It took us 4 years. It took a lot of convincing and fighting, and we did it. I have an absolutely gorgeous perm that will kick the doors down for hairdressers in what they think a perm is. I made it so that people want a perm again and lean into it.
What kind of training is required for the hairdresser to kind of dispel this notion of the old way of perming? How do you teach it? How do you introduce it?
So that was another thing too. It's been so interesting building out, a product line as an actual hairdresser, salon owner, educator. So I was like, I'm gonna work out all my microaggressions in this product line. Like everything that I'm like, I hate when they do this. I hate when they do this. The first thing was, I'm not going to charge someone to learn how to use my product correctly. So we have a free certification on our website at curlcult.com. We have a pro portal where you enter in your licensing number, and you have access to everything. You will learn how to perm for free. We have a 55-minute video that takes you through how we apply it. We demo certification on the Cali Wave, which is a really simple, straightforward, mid to long length perm. Just because that was another thing too. I wanted some uncomplicated perm patterns that hairdressers who aren't perming, maybe haven't done a perm since beauty school, are like, okay, I could roll that. You can roll it fast. It's effective, it's efficient, and it gives you waves instead of just, like we all know how to
Spirals.
roll a granny perm. I do not need to teach that. Like, check that box. We know how to do that. And we probably, that's not, anyone that, oh, as I knock stuff down, anyone that's doing that, like, already knows how to do that. I don't need to teach that. What I need to teach is ways that we can engage a different clientele, that we can get hairdressers excited about offering perming services in their salon, and to make it cool enough to compete with color services so that we're making the same amount, if not more, as we are on our color tickets. So it's a new piece of pie for hairdressers. Instead of, okay, do this or this, this is like, you can engage almost all your haircuts to get some sort of permanent texture service. We have Pism Protex technology in our perm solution, in our shampoo, conditioner, and leave-in conditioner spray. What that is, it's pea protein and like the Plex, that a lot of bleach additives have. What's super cool, it's in our perm solution. So when that goes on the hair, we neutralize over top. So it actually locks pea protein and like this flexible shining component into the inner cortex layer. So our perms are softer, shinier, often better than how the client's hair came in. It also gives us a little bit more leeway to do it on some previously lightened hair, gentle highlighted hair, balayage, things like that.
So what kind of client would this, or how would you introduce it to your client? What would be your typical sort of entree to the client with this service?
Okay, perfect. So there's like that sweet spot client. Like, my favorite perm client is the client that all these, like, because for years, the most popular services, like all these things that we've had, the cool things for clients are really aggressive color services. And it leaves out a large portion of clients, oftentimes with dark hair or naturally light hair, that they don't want to be silver. They don't want to have punky colors. They don't want to have extreme blonding. So any of those clients that have been kind of left behind with the trends for the last 5 to 7 years, they're going to be delighted, because you can make it as aggressive tight a curl as you want, as to a barely there whisper of a wave, to a calic fix, to a volume, just a pinch of volume. You can dial it up, dial it back. We perm on braids, we perm on twist knots. You can perm on everything, because we reformulated and elevated how you actually process a perm. So those clients, the number one, my favorite one, are those that client that's like, I have short, I want something totally different. Extreme haircut. I don't want extreme color, and I don't want bangs. I'm like, great, you get a perm. It's perfect, because we're in that 7.2 pH. It also, depending on the size of the rod you use, can be argued that it's more of a demi perm too. So on the looser looks, 3 to 4 months from now, it'll completely like shake out of the hair and look kind of just like a loose blow dry, and eventually go away. Whereas perms of the past, if somebody got a perm, it's like, all right, and if you don't like it, we have to cut it out. That's done, because that's insane. Our clientele, our consumers have evolved so far to have so many more, like, possibilities and choices, that our products and services have to do the same.
This is, you're right, this is not your grandma's perm. And
it's not.
It's exciting, because anything that helps hairdressers after the 18 months we've been through,
Yeah.
and are still, still coping and dealing with. I know we're going to be able to share some pictures. We're going to share some before and afters. But if you had to, how would you wrap up this conversation? Like if you were getting any pushback from somebody on this, what would you say to them to sort of convince them to at least, look at the perm differently?
Yeah, it's the reality is it's like I didn't make this trend up. It's coming. I have an entire book of perm business of other people's clients because their stylists don't do it. And every time we take a survey, take a poll, we have year after year recognized the number one reason a client's going to leave you is because you didn't change them. So it is like whether you like it or not, curly hair is coming. It we can't fight it. Trends come back. Curly hair is coming. It's here to stay. Especially after us being in lockdown for so long, we had clients finally leaving their hair alone and recognizing, okay, maybe I don't have to do so much with my hair. Also reevaluating their priorities and leaning towards more effortless solutions for their hair. So it's supporting this like even higher up, higher like subconscious trend of clients wanting something that solves a bigger problem for them, gives them back their time, gives them back their energy, and they're not fighting, their hair every morning. This is the best way to support your client having a wash and wear hairdo. Like that's where my inspiration started of even building a perm clientele was I had so many clients that were like, I wish it looked this good when I did it. And I was like, well, if I like permed it, maybe it could, and if I gave you the right products and showed you how to just properly air dry it, we could get it there. And I was doing it with perms, but the chemical itself was falling short. It was leaving hair dry. It was like such a crapshoot if it was going to fry the hair or under process it. So there was a ton of work to be done, but I knew putting permanent texture in an intentional way, using modern setting techniques, using bendy rods, softer application tools, that we could create permanent texture for clients so that, the 3 months in between seeing us, their hair did look great when they got out of the pool, when they got out of the shower, like they could wash and go and, get their life back and not spend time blow drying their hair and doing all that stuff. Because at the end of the day, like I've yet to meet a mass majority of clients that are like, oh, I love blow drying my hair. I love wanding it every day. It's like, no, they don't. We've just been told and sold that's like, that's the only way to get this. That's the only way to get texture in your hair. And it's not true. We can perm it.
I love your use of the word intentional too, that this is, intentional curl. And I'm so glad you took all this time to introduce us to it, but also to talk us through the why behind curl
Yeah,
cult, and again, another cheeky iteration
of
from
course.
Janine Jarman, Heroin Salon Curl Cult. I love it.
Yay.
So thank you so much. Don't go away, but I'm going
Okay.
to thank you so much for joining us
Thank
today.
you. I have fun. Let's get perming, everyone.
Absolutely.